Hello guys, in this video I will go through how I created the UltraPainter mod, some challenges I faced and what I want to implement in the future. This is not a step-by-step how to make a mod tutorial, but instead it's an oversimplified breakdown of the mod. It's meant to give the early access testers better understanding of what's happening under the hood, and hopefully it could give you some cool ideas for your own mods or creations. However, if you would like a more detailed tutorial on how to create mods for City Skylines 2, let me know in the comments below. So, after I finished a big update for the Control C mod, I made a poll on X where I asked what mods you would like to see in the future, and the majority voted for a texture painting mod. Victory! At first I wasn't sure if I wanted to take on this project, since I knew it would be a pretty challenging task and require a lot of work. But a nagging voice in the back of my head kept saying, "Do it!" And so I did. So, at first I tried to look at the game's terrain materials to see if there was anything we could fiddle with there. But as it turned out, trying to back-engineer shaders as a non-game developer was a little bit more complicated than I expected. However, I stumbled upon an interesting concept: splat maps. They are basically images where each channel represents a texture in the shader, and that was something we could have use of. There are probably a ton of different ways a terrain painting mod could be implemented, but eventually I landed on this idea. What if we created a decal that we could paint on using splat maps? Quick note, this method isn't ideal for the cool things I want to implement. You will understand why later. With that in mind, I started experimenting. However, there was a slight problem. A single splat map only has 4 channels to work with, and thus would only allow us to have up to 4 different textures. But what if a splat map controlled 4 other splat maps? This would give us up to 16 different textures, which is way better than 4. So I started creating a decal shader that will use one main splat map that controls 4 sub-splat maps. Now I only had to implement it in the game. Once I learned how a decal projector works, it was pretty much a straightforward road. I made a system for instantiating decal projectors with our custom-made shader on it. And to oversimplify it, when you are painting, the mod looks for close-by decal projectors, and if there are none, it creates a new one. Then, based on what texture you have selected, the mod takes the main splat map and the texture set splat map and paints on it. As of now, the painting is done by the CPU, hence the poor performance. I'm working on it. Now, the main difficulties were the saving and loading mechanics and to keep the mod optimized. So, there are 2 main areas where the mod gets performance taxing: the painting itself and the rendering of the textures. Since the overall performance of the game is questionable, I decided that the most important thing would be to focus on the texture rendering. To balance high quality textures with good performance, I implemented the use of MIP maps and MIP streaming.
What?
MIP maps are essentially an array of downscaled versions of the texture. This will let us dynamically change the resolution of the texture based on the distance from the camera. And this really helped boost the performance. So, with the overall performance issues being handled, it was time to enable us to actually save our drawn textures. I made the decision to separate the mod save files from the games. This would not only let us be more flexible, but also ensure that your saved cities could not get corrupt. So, this is where the early access is now. Many of you have asked when the mod will be available on Paradox Mods, so I thought I would answer it here. The mod is in an early stage at this point, and there are a lot of improvements and new things I want to implement. I really want to take the time to ensure the mod is stable and holds a high quality before publicly releasing it on Paradox Mods. And if you are still watching, I want to thank you for your time. I was a bit unsure of this video, but since I made the claim that I would create it, I felt like I had to finish it. Also, I want to thank the supporters on Patreon. Your support and feedback on the mod is invaluable, so big thank you. So what's in store for the future? Well, besides the overall improvements that will be made, I always have a ton of ideas. But time is of course a limit. Something I have been playing around with and really want to implement is tessellation. This would allow us to build a system that creates puddles when it rains, and so on. This would however require me to make some significant changes to the mod, or even rebuild it from scratch. But it would be cool. Thank you all again. I have no idea who's still watching. Yeah, that's it.